thank you for having accepted our invitation to be here today. And, first of all, you are really this researcher in terms of the connection between the Gita and the practice of the Raja Yoga. And I think that the Gita is this most famous scripture known all over the world. At least here in Brazil, many people read the Gita, study the Gita. And it's pretty philosophical and metaphorical from what I know. And the first thing I would like you to speak about is what is the real connection between the Gita and our practical life? How people could take some of the lessons and the concepts and the directions in the Gita and apply in their lives, day-to-day life, so that they can take a real benefit from that.
Well, it's absolutely connected in real life, but the Gita is presented as an allegory. And it is presented on the battlefield. And this is metaphorical for life, because life is a battlefield. And you are constantly under attack from something or someone somewhere. And you experience stress. You experience sometimes injustice. You have to create strategy. You need guidance. You need to have a sense of a perspective on life that's realistic and not just somebody's made up idea. So the Gita is ancient, is said to be 5,000 years old, and it's said to come from incorporeal God, who positions himself as the teacher and also as the instructor of the spiritual warrior. So we need to look at ourselves in a number of different ways. And life is in the context of relationships. And life is a very competitive affair. It's political. The family system is political. You have to negotiate for your rights. You have to negotiate the balance of power in order to be able to express yourself freely. And the Gita is all about the philosophy of karma, which means you really are given plenty of information as to how to act in such a way that the consequences of your action bring about the best possible result for you and for everyone else. So it's absolutely relevant whether we're talking about 5,000 years ago or 1,000 years ago or now, because human nature is human nature. It's always been like this. It's an inner war as well. People have their inner demons, and the Gita talks a lot about how to handle those. And you're in the context of your family, your community, your country, you're in the world, you're in your culture. You have a context of cultural beliefs, religious beliefs, scientific beliefs, a worldview, and you have to understand yourself in the midst of all that and how to function so that you have full success. And people are disempowered, and they mostly don't know what they're doing in all the spheres of life. They may be good in one or two spheres, but very few are good in all spheres. So the Gita teaches you how to be good in all spheres, but also it teaches you how to take power, because the soul itself is depleted and it is impacted by a long history of negative karma, traumas, betrayals, so many things which weaken the soul. And so Raj Yoga is a big study, but it's also a practice where you learn how to connect your mind to the Supreme Being so that you can take power, because you need power to be able to put into effect the wise directions and perspective on life that is being given throughout the Gita. So this is really what the connection is.
Very interesting. You know, hearing what you are saying, there are two different feelings that emerge inside. From one side, this excitement and this it's very inviting what you are saying, because it shows that it's really possible for someone to create your destiny. Like, you can create your destiny. Life is in your hands, and it's possible. No, it's not something that you leave at random, like waiting for God's blessings or whatever the future has to bring. But on the other side, it also shows that it's very complex and very deep, and it really requires attention and time and study and dedication. So we know also that Raja Yoga is known as this very difficult practice. No, it's known as the most elevated of all the yogas, and some people even say that you have to pass through different steps to be able to really practice Raja Yoga. So my question now is, do you think that the Raja Yoga practice is something easy or difficult?
Let's put it this way, there are many levels. And when you think of life itself as a university, once you begin to include the ideas, concepts, and practices of Raj Yoga in your life, you start off at a fairly simple, basic kindergarten level. But as you go further, you begin to see and experience the complexities, and you are in a course of study that continues or capable of continuing until the end of your life. So you can move from level to level to level, and as you naturally, organically complete your understanding at one level, you'll experience a block, which is a sign that, okay, you've done that level. Now you have to lift yourself up and push through this invisible block. And then you're on the next level. And then you can go, and it's a different landscape. You have different challenges, different things are required of you. It's more subtle. You are held to account more than in the easier levels, just as you go through the different grades in school. And so you go up through kindergarten to the lower school, the middle school, the higher school. You can go on to university, get a bachelor, master's, get a doctorate, keep going. But unlike a regular university, you don't specialize in a narrower and narrower area of specialization as most academic people do. But for you, your horizon gets wider and wider and wider, and you learn something that I call circular thinking, which enables you to look at everything always in a holistic way. You're always looking at the whole universe, and your perspective as you progress becomes broader and wider and deeper, and you're able to grasp much larger universal concepts and live in the midst of that, doing what you have to do and shifting your mind from the here and now, right this minute, right here, and look at it from a global perspective in the next second, so that you're never out of context. And this is what I like about it so much. And when you see it like that, and you're looking at the past, the present, the future, which the Gita talks about a lot, you need to see the consequences of what you're doing and how you got to where you are now. And this is all about the past, present, and future. And to understand that you must really pay attention to the present, because that's the only time that you have freedom of action. And if you are busy thinking about something else in the present moment, you miss opportunities, and then your karma cannot be as potent and as impactful as it would be if you're really understanding the importance of using every present moment. And as the present second goes into the past, let it go and focus on the next second, because that is where you can act. And this is how you create your destiny.
Coming to this aspect that you are mentioning about the present moment, and also connecting it with the Gita, we are living unprecedented times, I believe, because of the intensity of the events that are going around, but also people are so anxious. It looks like after the pandemic, everyone became a little bit more anxious inside. So it looks like it's extreme outside, but it's also very fast inside. And so many challenges like this war and natural calamities, which impact the economy of the entire world. And people don't see much perspective of future in a long term. How would you connect the present moment with the Gita itself?
Well, one of the things that we learn in the study of Raj Yoga that we do in connection with the Gita is that, the world, which the Gita also speaks about, the world of sense perception is deceptive. And so what you have to do in your practice is to realize that all the things that you can perceive through the senses, that means what you see, what you hear, what you touch, what you smell, everything that's, invading your consciousness through all your senses is a three-dimensional movie, which is multi-level, because a lot of what people experience is not like they used to, but we have all this media and social media and everything, so that you get bombarded with material, and people's work is using technology and so on. So we are very much affected by the high speed of technology and what we are required to do. Technology was supposed to make life easier, but it definitely makes it more complicated. So what you have to do, using the knowledge of yoga, is to create distance between yourself and your sense perception, and understand that your responsibility to yourself is to be selective. And you learn how to use your focus of attention in such a way that you select whatever is useful, relevant, meaningful for you, and what you want to know. And if you want to know everything, you won't know anything, because you're not being selective. You just be a kind of victim of bombardment. And so you need to be really keep yourself in the center of the universe, not as a kind of bystander, but there you are. Everything is happening to you, and the place where you experience whatever comes in through your senses, that's your mind. And what the Gita teaches you is how to take care of your mind, so that it only you only allow in what you want to entertain in your mind. Because where do you live? You do not live in your house or your apartment or whatever. You live in your mind. And so to learn how to use your mind and work with your mind in such a way that your life is quality means you need to be in control of the input that comes in through your sense organs, and you can distance yourself from it at will. And this means you learn how to be fast.
One of the aspects of, we know that the origin, let's say, of thoughts is the awareness, the consciousness. And we also know that one of the bases of the Raja Yoga practice is exactly this consciousness of who we really are. And would you like to speak a little bit about this consciousness of who we really are, the soul conscious, let's say?
The Gita talks about the soul, and what's difficult for people is to really grasp what is the meaning and implication and vibration and resonance of understanding that you are immortal. It's very, very far away from how people normally think. But the Gita says, no, you are immortal. There has never been a time when you didn't exist as the same individual that you are, and you will never cease to exist. And at the same time, you pass through many stages. And the present stage that you are in is very exhausted and depleted. And this is why you're having so much trouble with life. And you need to look at how many people are afraid of death, afraid of pain, afraid of somebody else dying, afraid of lots of things, you see. But a person who really grasps that they're immortal, they can face things, you see, and go through things and come into their power, because the soul is not a physical object. The soul is genderless. So all the issues that we have in this world about gender is all delusions, actually, but it's a collective hypnosis that everyone is under, but you don't have to be under it. You are surrounded by it, but you become gender free, you see. And the soul is colorless, so it really doesn't matter what your race is or what your culture is. All of that is secondary. All of that is part of your performance. There's a big drama going on, and you step into it and perform it, or you step out and be a detached observer. You learn how to shift yourself and experience yourself as a being who is not the same as your body, which is a puppet. And you work through your puppet. And there are many analogies of technology, like with the artificial intelligence. You see, you pop something into a piece of metal and it becomes a robot, and the robot will do what you want. So in many ways, the soul is the controller of this body, which has often been alluded to as a puppet. And but it's not your identity. And this is where you have to shift. I am not a woman, I am not English, I am not whatever my age is, I am not whatever my religion is. That is not my identity. My identity is practically impossible to grasp, but an incorporeal, indestructible, immortal being of light who comes from another dimension. In that sense, we are almost extraterrestrials, you see. So as people start to grasp this, which takes a long time to make this shift from this deluded state of being a body and gradually grasp the implications of not being a body, it means there's no such thing as death. It's just a change of puppet, you know, and you can perform in any way you want. You don't have to be a victim. Somebody may say something about you, you don't have to take that on board. So there's a lot of psychological value in that, because it really empowers you, brings you into your power. And the wonderful thing of being able to know that you are able to become independent of circumstances, and that what you need to do is make sure that your karma is the best, because whatever your karma is, doesn't matter what it was, it matters what it is now, is creating your future. And whatever challenges you encounter along the way, now you can say it's a consequence of some past karma, you can say it's a test, you can say it's something to strengthen me, something to enable me to acquire greater capacity, greater skills, but you interpret everything to your personal advantage. But it doesn't mean that you're selfish. It also doesn't mean that you let people push you around. So to me, it's a really, really valuable study and practice to do. I think everyone should have access to it, you know.
Such deep pieces of truth, that you are sharing with us. And it automatically brings to my mind another aspect, because one of the main characters of the Gita is Krishna, and Krishna for some religions, for some people, is known as God. And Krishna is the one who really gives the directions for the battle in the Gita, for the right awareness, I believe. And people, they really have different concepts about who God is, and also different levels of connection with God in terms of the impact of this in their practical life. How is your relationship with God, and how do you relate God with Krishna in the Gita?
Yeah, it's true what you say. And what happens is people tend to anthropomorphize God, which means they will find a face and a body which is generally male. And so for the Christians, it's Jesus Christ. For the Buddhists who actually don't believe in God, but they believe in the Buddha. For Islamic people, they say, God cannot be depicted, but his prophet is Muhammad. So they focus on Muhammad. And in Judaism, God is Yahweh, God is the supreme light, but then they focus on main people like Moses, Abraham. So these prophets are more accessible to humanity who thinks in pictures and who is really unable to come out of the consciousness of the body. But when God is described in the Gita, Krishna is one of the attributive adjectives. It's not actually the name of God. It means the most attractive. And God is indeed the most attractive. But then the picture of Shri Krishna was stuck on the cover of the Gita about 200-300 years ago for political reasons, to encourage Hindus to rise up against the colonial powers and take their freedom. And that was the only way the religious authorities could get people to fight for their rights. And so that's when and how Krishna became known as the God of the Gita. But otherwise, if you look through the whole Gita, there are many different words which describe God as like names. And so, for example, if you look in Islam, you have the list of the 1,000 names of God, which are all the most merciful, the most compassionate, the protector, all of these things. So Krishna is just another one of these words that describe different attributes of God, who is actually incorporeal. There is no physical form of God whatsoever. The form of God is light. And in the Gita, God is shown as a light brighter than 1,000 suns, which Arjuna could not bear to look at. And he was saying, stop, I can't handle this light, come back to your comfortable form, your loving form, your friendly form. And so God is known as, in Sanskrit, Bahurupi, you see, which means one who has many facets, one who can be experienced in many, many different ways. So when God is the almighty authority, the supreme justice, you better be afraid. But God is also the lover. God is your mother, your father, your friend, your companion, your guide. These are all kind of friendly relationships. And when you begin to get a relationship with God who presents himself to you, who says, you know, I exist, and but I'm not physical, and I'm not human, but I do exist, and I am your mother, father, teacher, friend, guide. So come to me, come close to me. But for that, you have to set aside your consciousness of the body. So as much as you gradually enter into the consciousness of the soul and take on that identity and dispossess yourself of your sense of yourself as your body and everything that goes with it, to that extent, you're able to perceive God. And your perception, you cannot perceive God through the five senses. You can only perceive God through the third eye. So one of the names of God is the giver of the third eye. Now, Krishna doesn't have any third eye, and he doesn't give the third eye. So Krishna is a character, a human being, who is a major player as the emperor of the golden age when he grows up and becomes Narayan, you see. But once this is established, that the God who speaks the Gita is not that Krishna, but the incorporeal supreme being who has to, as it shows in the Mahabharata, Krishna sits in a carriage. And Arjuna and Krishna are both in the same carriage. And the carriage is symbolic for the human body. This is your vehicle. And you are not the vehicle. You are in the vehicle. And so Krishna, or God, is talking to Arjuna in this vehicle, which means there are two souls in one body, and they're talking to each other. And this is out of range of most people's ability to comprehend. But yet, if you think about it often enough and deeply enough with enough details, you can gradually grasp it, that, yeah, this is the only way that God can communicate with humanity in a dimension that human beings can manage, you see, which is the human language. And so God will speak as an incarnated spiritual entity, incarnate into the body of the person he wants to talk to. And the interesting thing about the Gita, which is different from all the other religious descriptions of the encounters with God of the prophet of that religion, that it was witnessed by other people. You see, when Moses saw the burning bush, there were no witnesses. And, you know, when Jesus was talking to God, there were no witnesses. And all these people who have these great enlightenment experiences, Buddha underneath the Bodhi tree, no witnesses. But when Krishna is talking to Arjuna on the battlefield in the carriage, there were 3 or 4 witnesses, and they all listened to what God was saying. And so this is very, very important, because you establish whether something happened or not if there are witnesses. It's a legal procedure. And so it's very interesting how the Gita stands up to legal scrutiny when you understand the metaphors and symbols and so on. And put them in front of people, that this is how you can read the symbolism. And that's really what I focus on in my research and my work.
It seems that meditation has a role, a key role, I believe, in two aspects. First, to be able to grasp beyond the reason, and second, to also be able to connect with your entire being, and kind of really experience all of these aspects. Like even listening to you now, some of the aspects you really can kind of connect with them, with your heart, with your being, and then they start to make much more sense. And I think that the meditation teaches this art, of kind of being able to be more subtle in your perception of reality. So our time is almost finishing, and I would like to invite you to finish this encounter, this meeting, speaking a little bit about meditation and maybe guiding people in a brief experience of meditation, if possible.
Sure. Well, meditation is a journey. It's an internal journey. And meditation actually means to think very, very deeply and with focused attention on what is really worth thinking about. And so the study is the base of the meditation. And you need to take up an attribute of the study or an aspect of the study and focus on it. So if you say, okay, I want to focus on this idea that I'm immortal. So that means you make a commitment to yourself that I will not think about anything else other than I want to understand more deeply, more subtly, what does it mean to consider myself as immortal? Because that's different. And so allow yourself to turn within, because you're not using your senses for meditation. You're going inside and you're using your mind, your capacity for comprehension and understanding, evaluation. This is your intellect. In your mind, you experience the implications. In your intellect, you focus on the elements, you collect the elements that are part of your thought process. Immortal means no beginning, no end. It's not like your birth certificate or your death certificate. Those are totally irrelevant. So how is my duration? How do I think about being forever? Not dying. I came from somewhere. After this life, I go somewhere. This life is a little tiny slice of a much greater whole. So in my meditation, I'm being led to this greater whole that is the totality of me. And how do I know this? It's because a greater being than myself is talking to me about it, letting me know who I am. So I need to have greater access to that being because I need to know what else there is. But the immortality of myself is my focus now. So let me keep my attention on that and try to feel in the mind the enormity of this acknowledgement to myself. I am actually immortal. I don't have to become immortal. I'm already immortal. I just have to understand it and sense it so that I know it. And when you meditate like this, you go deeper and deeper and more focused into the meaning of the idea. And through that, you begin to experience it. When you're focused and steady, you can go into stillness. And in the stillness, you start to feel it because you're focused. No distractions. Just I am an immortal soul, and that's that. But it's amazing. And then you just shift your consciousness back into normal reality. Because when you're meditating, you do go into a different dimension. You're really going into the stillness of the mind. And normally we're engaged in the three-dimensional world of sight and sound and past, present, and future. Thank you.
Wonderful, so deep. And it's amazing how just few minutes like that already make your perspective so broader. Oh, it's like you start to feel another level of reality, but also another quality of feelings inside. You know, it's like different quality of feelings, and it comes up so naturally. So thank you, Sister Denise. Many thanks. I'm sure there are so much more for us to explore with you, and I hope we can have a second chance to have another session.